Okay, well, thanks, Pauline, for joining us this morning for the Fraser Coast Library's interview with you. We're really excited to be able to speak to you, and you're one of our homegrown celebrities here from Hervey Bay, so it's fabulous to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming this internet sensation on slow cooking?
Well, I don't know about internet sensation, but I guess I was doing nursing. I started slow cooking probably before I had kids, and working shift work, I was looking for, anything that made that sort of dinner time easier. I also already spent a lot of time on Facebook, so that was just sort of naturally where I gravitated to look for recipes. And I guess I didn't sort of find exactly what I was looking for, or I wanted a place where I could share more ideas. And so I started the Facebook group, Slow Cooker Recipes for Families. And, I thought maybe a few of my friends might join and we might be able to share some ideas. And a lot of people joined. Now we're up to just over 600,000 members from all over the world. So lots of recipes. Amazing. Yeah, it certainly wasn't something I expected. This was just an interest thing. It was never meant to turn into a business. And I guess soon we outgrew the limits of Facebook as far as being able to display all our recipes. So then we created the Slow Cooker Central website. And a little while after that, ABC Books contacted me and said, hey, do you want to do some recipe books? And then we did our mobile phone app, and we just keep trying to sort of grow. So I don't know what's next, but yeah, it's growing all the time.
And now you're up to 6. I've got a few here. All the rest are actually out on loan. But you've just produced your 6th book.
Yep, 6 in 6 years. We've done one every year, so it's been pretty hectic 6 years, I can tell you. But
that's just amazing. It really is. It's fabulous. So tell me, your initial books that you published were community-based recipes, but I believe you're now doing your own recipes. How do you find time?
I think the thing with, as far as finding time is, food's everywhere. So when you're eating out somewhere, you're thinking about recipes. When you're shopping, you're looking at food and ingredients and thinking of ideas, and magazines and TV. I think it's the sort of thing that's around you all the time. So it's something that you can sort of multitask while you're at work or at the shops, or, out for dinner, you're still thinking of ideas. And like you said, the first 4 books in our series, we ran competitions for group members to submit their recipes to their books if they chose to, which was great to get a real sort of community collection going. And the last 2 books now have been just my own recipes in those as well. So between the 6 books, we've got about 1,200 or 1,300, somewhere around there, recipes like the book. So all the books are individual to each other, and lots of good ideas with different focuses. Some books have budget focus, some are kids focus. Yeah, so hopefully we appeal to everybody what they want and need.
Fantastic. And now you mentioned you've got a kids book, so it's something that kids can do, slow cooking?
Yeah, so the 4th book in our series, the Slow Cooker Central Kids, we wanted it to be still food for the whole family, but really simple recipes that we could get kids involved in the kitchen and cooking with them. And so that the tastes of the recipes are all sort of nothing overly exotic or spicy. So we were aiming for, things that fussy kids might like, but also simple enough that the kids can get in and cook, because I think that's a big part of helping kids to be more adventurous in what they eat, as if they're involved in the cooking process, they're more sort of invested in liking the outcome. Yeah. And also just we want to, give kids those skills as early as we can. And the beauty with slow cooking is that it's not, boiling water or hot fat or hot oven. So it's a really safe way for kids to learn to cook and get their confidence. A lot of recipes, they're not even hot, they're put in before they're turned on. So the kids can get in there and with a bit of help from mum and dad, get the recipes on, turn them on, and at the end they can be really proud about what they've made as well. So
yeah, encouraging them to eat, as you say, it's fabulous. So what about if there's something in an ingredient in one of the recipes that your kids or you don't particularly like? Is it substitution possible in all your recipes? Or
I think all recipes should be a general guide. I mean, if I'm looking at a recipe somewhere and I think an example, I really don't like coriander. So if I see coriander in a recipe, I might just leave it out. Or, some people don't like garlic. I love garlic, so I put it in lots of things. But I think you should always use the recipe as just a general guide. If there's something in there that you don't like, you can always Google a substitute for it online to find something that's kind of similar. or if it's not a really big part of it, just leave it out because you want to enjoy the end result. So there's not a major ingredients. Having said that, though, I often will swap main ingredients. So I might have a chicken recipe, but I'll use it with beef and things like that. So I reckon experiment and find what you like best. And if you're not sure, maybe stick to the recipe the first time, and then maybe the next time around you might like to change something out of it.
Yeah, well, actually seeing all these slow cooker recipes has really changed my style of slow cooking. And I'm not a really big slow cooker, but I'm gradually getting into it more and more. But everything I used to do tasted the same because I was sort of trying to make up, and I tended to use the things I really liked. But now looking at your recipes, it's sort of shown me that, yeah, you've got to really follow the recipe to start with, and then you just substitute a few little things if you need to.
Yeah, I think so. It gets you out of that sort of comfort zone of the things that you usually cook. And like you said, for a lot of people, when they think of slow cooking, they're thinking of sort of soups, stews, and maybe a silver side or something. So if you're doing a lot of, say, stews, then things might taste the same. But then you might, if you get these books out or go to our website, you might try a lasagna and then a quiche and then some curry and then a whole chicken, and they don't all taste the same. So I think you just need to expand things that you try, and some you might not like, but others you might find a new favourite. So
now, a big question people often talk about with slow cooking is to brown or not to brown. What's your feeling on that?
I'm definitely kind of lean towards the not brown side. I get the benefits of doing it. Some recipes, I think it's important. Things you might sometimes have things floured and sealed, like say some beef strips or something like that. Some people like to have that sort of extra flavour and caramelisation on, say, a roast or some lamb shanks before they put it in. And these days, the newer slow cookers that you can sear and brown in the actual slow cooker, that sort of negates the whole worry about extra dishes and extra mess that some people perhaps don't brown for. But I also really like the convenience of just putting everything in and walking away. And I think that's a real draw card for slow cooking for a lot of people. So generally speaking, you can brown or not brown. It's up to you. You'll probably sort of know if that's something that you like to do, and a few minutes extra is worth it if that's what you like. But a lot of ones, they're fine without it too.
Okay, right. Well, that's made my life a lot simpler. Thank you. Now, you talked about soups and casseroles and stews and those sorts of things, but you do lots of other things as well, cakes and sweets and all sorts of things that I would never have thought about doing. How did that all come about?
I think it's just, I suppose I just like being creative, and if I see something that isn't traditionally a well, why can't I do it in a slow cooker? Really, the only thing that you can't do is something that needs like deep frying. That really high heat sort of fat type recipe wouldn't suit a slow cooker, but pretty much anything else. We see a lot of people in our group that, they're having their kitchen renovated, or they're in a rental and the oven doesn't work. And there's lots of recipes that people think, oh, I can't do that. But then they realize they can do it in a slow cooker. And we do a little trick called the tea towel trick, where there's a dry tea towel laid over the slow cooker, then the lid on top and the tea towel tucked up away from the sides. And that creates a drier environment inside the slow cooker, which allows things like you said, the cakes and the slices and biscuits and stuff that ordinarily you wouldn't do in a slow cooker because it's quite, it drips off the lid and stuff. So that's a way that we get around it and make it a lot more versatile. And because it's cheaper to run than your oven or stove, I think, try everything. Why not?
Yeah. That's amazing. It's changed my way of cooking from now on, I'm sure. Okay, so the safety of leaving it on. I work full time. The safety of leaving it on all day.
Yeah, I mean they are obviously they're designed to do that. There is some people who still will not leave home with it on. They're the sorts. Those people often won't leave with the washing machine on or other sorts of appliances. And if that's what they're comfortable with, then they're better off slow cooking overnight, like some people do. So they can put it in the fridge before they go to work in the morning. Others will save their slow cooking for the weekend when they're at home, if that's how they feel. But I mean, I personally leave mine on. I slow cook pretty much every day, and I'm always in and out of the house and leaving it on by itself. I think some general safety ideas like the tea towel trick we mentioned, we don't do that if you're leaving home alone. Don't have your appliance right next to the curtains or something like, flammable paper or something. I tend to like to put mine on a big heavy wooden cutting board or on top of the ceramic cooktop where your hot plates are, because that's an area that's designed for hot things anyway. And I think with a couple simple precautions like that, you should be pretty safe. But I guess it's a call that you can only make for yourself. But generally speaking, that's what they're meant for. So.
Right. Now, you talk about roasts as well. I mean, I traditionally think of a roast, like a roast chicken as a dry roasting process. Is that possible in the slow cooker, or what sort of result do you get from roasting?
Absolutely. So I do most of my whole chickens in the slow cooker. They will, the thing with roasts and chickens and the like is don't add any liquid to start with, because by the end of cooking, it'll have about an inch or so of cooking liquids and condensation that will build up in the bottom. So you can always start your roast dry, just with, add your seasonings or herbs or whatever you want, but don't add any stock or liquid. And while they won't be crispy at the end like an oven, some people will like to slow cook them and then move them to the oven for just a few minutes to, say, crisp up that chicken skin. Or if you've got a pork crackle, you can slow cook your pork all day, which is absolutely beautiful. And then 15 to 20 minutes on that super high heat in the oven at the end will bring up your crackle still, even though it's been in the slow cooker all day with a bit of oil and salt. It comes up beautiful crackle, and yet the meat inside is really tender and moist because it's been slow cooked all day. So, yeah. Wow. Definitely good. And nothing smells like a roast slow cooking all day, in my opinion.
That's fabulous. Okay, now tell me about converting recipes. If I've got a favourite recipe that I like to do in my oven, how do I manage to convert it?
Well, one of the things that you'll find in all of our books in the front, in the tips section, is a special section on converting recipes. So it's got all the details that you can have a read through, and they're on our website too. But generally speaking, the main thing to think about is that fluid balance. So if you've got a stovetop recipe and you want to change it to slow cooker, I'd cut whatever the liquids are in the original recipe down to about 1/3 for the slow cooker. So if you were having a cup of stock on the stove, go for 1/3 of a cup if in the slow cooker. And again, you can still do those. So your stovetop recipe might have some browning, or softening onions or garlic first. You could still do that on the stove and move it to the slow cooker. Or, these newer generation slow cookers that sear in themselves, you can do that and then just turn it back to slow cook. But there's those sorts of guides to how to convert the two. But generally speaking, most things will go over pretty well as long as you just sort of lower that liquid content.
Okay. Now, if I'm going to work for 8 hours every day, is it okay to just do everything for 8 hours on slow?
No, some recipes aren't great for 8 hours. Like, for example, if you were doing something with like chicken breast fillets or like a skinless, boneless chicken fillet, that's sort of more like around 4 or 5 hours tops for that. Right. Other recipes like sausages, they're more adaptable. So while they'll be cooked in about 5 or 6, you can leave them longer. But long work days are great for things like roasts and soups and the casseroles and the silver sides. And again, something to keep in mind with being away all day is that an emptier slow cooker will cook hotter. So if you want to leave it all day, something that really fills it up good will tolerate a longer cooking time. So that might be doing a double batch of something if you want it to, freeze your leftovers for another day so you don't have to worry about that after work, or just little considerations like that as to what you put into it. But not everything is suitable for all day cooking. But again, in our books and on our website, we've got or in the website especially, when you search for recipes, there's a drop-down category menu, and we've got one specifically for recipes 8 hours and over. So if you're working all day, you can go on and have a look at ones that are just meant for you. So to give you that option. Other people are at home during the day, so they might put it on at lunchtime or in the afternoon. Or again, some people like to cook overnight. I don't think I can sleep with all the yummy smells at night time, but each to their own.
No, definitely not. Okay, now that brings me to all the different types of slow cookers. I've heard on the grapevine that you have over 30. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. In my defense, like, this is my job and I consider it like the tools of my trade. My husband is a painter and he has more than one paintbrush, and that's how I defend my addiction. But I do have a lot. I store them all on shelves in the garage. But also, as well as reviewing the slow cookers and testing them and just plain loving slow cooking, I also like to test my new recipes across different models. So that's why I have lots of them because, you know, I want to make sure that a recipe I'm saying works good in one cooker will work good in lots. Or if someone has an issue with theirs, I can get mine out and we can compare some notes and help in that way. So, but yeah, I do have a lot.
So for the single person, if you just use just one of those little 1.5 litres or, you know, the really small little slow cooker, is that going to take less time to cook?
Well, I love the 1.5 litre slow cookers that you get at like the Woolworths supermarket kind of deal. I do tend to use them more for like side dishes and desserts and stuff. They're the perfect size for a pudding and that. And they are certainly okay for 1 or 2 people for a main meal. But if you have that as your only slow cooker, you won't fit in a roast, you won't fit in lamb shanks, you won't fit in a big soup and that sort of thing. So I think the smaller ones are a great second slow cooker. Before you know it, you have 3 and 4 and so it goes on. But particularly those little ones you mentioned, do tend to cook a little bit hotter than others. But generally, I think people should start at the average slow cooker, a big one is around 6 litres. But they've got ones about 3.5. So if you've got a small family or just 1 or 2 people, the 3.5 will still give you that freedom of being able to fit in bigger recipes without having to have it empty and hotter. But you won't be too limited. But if you're a big family or, you know, you like doing those bulk cooks, then I think a 6 litre or above is the way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So just to finish up here, can you give us perhaps your top 2 or 3 tips for someone starting out perhaps, or someone like me who's just been using it for soups and casseroles?
I think my number 1 tip is to try more stuff. So go onto the books, go onto the website and just have a browse, or on our Facebook group as well as another option, and just see what other people are cooking. Our recipes on our website have feedback under each one, so you can look at what other people did, what other people thought about them, and you might go to a category like I mentioned, the 8-hour one. You might like Thai food, so you could go to our Thai category or our Indian or beef or chicken, or start with something you like, but try new things. And I think it's the sort of thing you can experiment with. You're not likely to burn it like on a stove. You can't really go wrong. So that would be my number 1 tip, is to try more things. The tea towel trick that we talked about earlier is a really handy tip to let you cook so much more different things. And as well as, using it for, say, cakes and biscuits, some people use it as a thickening option. So because it's like keeping the extra moisture out of that recipe, then the end result is a thicker, consistency. So that's another tip. Other things with, most people will thicken with, some corn flour and water at the end, or you might want to put in some rice or pasta or things like that. But again, all of our books and the website have the tips on different ways to thicken. What's another tip? Fat and oil. Sometimes when you're slow cooking, the oil will sort of sit on top of a dish like it would if you had a slow cooking casserole or something. As well as just scooping the fat off. Another way to do it is to quickly lay a piece of bread on the top, and the bread will soak up all that fat, and you can discard it. Some people say to give it to the dog, others say don't do that. That's a call for you and your pet owner to make. But that's a quick way to remove excess fat, which I think is a handy little tip. And one other thing that comes to mind is if your dish is too salty, pop in a whole raw peeled potato, maybe 2. So keep it whole, peel it, put it in for the last hour or so. It will absorb salt out of the dish, throw the potato out, and then your end result's less salty. So that's a couple of tips.
Fantastic. Sorry, I just thought of one more question I really need to know. Fudge.
Yep. Yes.
How do you cook fudge in your slow cooker? When it should be stirred, it should be.
Yeah, we've got about 400 odd different varieties of fudge on the website, so everybody loves this fudge. I tend to use those little slow cookers you talked about, the 1.5 litre. I think they're perfect for a fudge. But the basic fudge recipe is around 500 to 600 grams of chocolate. So you could choose a plain chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate. People choose ones with fruit and nuts in it, whatever version you want. And then a tablespoon of vanilla essence, tablespoon of butter, and a can of sweetened condensed milk. And that's it. And then you might want to add extra flavours or lollies or stuff if you want to. Put them all in your slow cooker. The fudge is the one exception of all of our recipes that doesn't have the lid on. So normally everything would have the lid on the slow cooker, but fudge doesn't, because if you get a drip of water condensed, it will seize up the chocolate. And so you put it on for about an hour and a half, stir it every 15 minutes, and that's it. You've got your fudge, and you just pour it out into a lined dish. You might like to put biscuits underneath the fudge that will cut up into it, lollies, nuts, anything that you want to top the fudge with or flavour it with. Pop it in the fridge for a few hours, bring it out, slice it up, and you get about 40 pieces of fudge, and it's always a hit. Everyone loves the fudge.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's going to happen this week.
Yeah. So cook that on low for that hour and a half in the little slow cooker. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Pauline, for giving us your time today. It's been really interesting. I know I've got such a lot out of it. Thank you and good luck. Are there more books coming?
I'm having a break at the moment, but you never know. Next year might see another one come back out. So thank you so much for having me today. It's lovely.
No problem. Thanks, Pauline. Bye.